Hi everybody, I'm Naima.
And this is Tivon.
And we're here from Fix the World Morocco. And today we're going to do some questions and answers talking about our Orgonite products, because we've had a lot of people that tune in, they write into us, they call us, and they have the same questions. So basically we took the general questions, about 20 questions, we put them all together. Yep. And I'm going to ask these questions one by one, and then we'll have Tivon answer them for everybody so that we can all be up to speed on the same questions. Okay, so the first question that we get a lot is, how do I protect myself and my home from 5G?
Okay, so there are several things you can do to protect your home. One of the solutions obviously is to have Orgonite around your home. The more the better. Before I get into that, there's some other things that you should consider when dealing with the harmful effects of wireless technology like 5G. One of them is you have energy coming from the cell phone towers, your neighbors, and other sources that you have no control over. So you want to provide a barrier of protection from that. So there's small things you can do around the home, like having metal screens on your windows, in your doorways, and what that does, that minimizes the amount of RF energy coming into your home. Other things you can do is that with the electrical power grid that's running through your house, that also carries these signals as well, in the form of what is called dirty electricity. Mm-hmm. So what you can do is purchase something called EMI filters. And these filters, basically when you plug it into your wall socket, it has another socket on it itself so that you can connect your devices to it. It filters or removes the high frequency spikes that is traveling on your power line. It's these spikes that causes these harmful effects to your body also. So EMI filters is another solution. There's also something called RF shielding paints that you can buy online. And RF shielding paints, you can paint your walls with this type of paint, and any incoming radiation that goes through that wall gets blocked out. So those are three solutions that you can do with relative ease to dramatically reduce the amount of energy coming from outside of your environment. Of course, when you go to sleep at night, always turn off any kind of wireless technology, your routers, even the television, your computer, your mobile phone, definitely. If not, put on airplane mode, remove the battery at night. And what you've done there is remove the immediate sources of wireless technology in your home that would also keep you awake. Now, having said all that, if you've taken all those things into consideration, it's always good to have Orgonite around your home, inside the home and outside the home. And why is that? Orgonite is able to take the stray harmful fields that are in your environment and convert those fields into beneficial energy.
Okay, next question. How do I use Orgone pyramids, and where do I place them?
Okay, so Orgone pyramids have a specific purpose. There's a reason why it's shaped like this, is because the way, as I mentioned before, Orgonite functions is it takes the stray fields from the environment and converts it into beneficial energy. Orgone pyramids, the reason why they're shaped in the pyramid form is because they have special electrical properties. With the pyramid shape, all kinds of RF fields and electrical charges tend to interact on the apex. Also, the field that's emitted from Orgone pyramids is in the form of, if you can imagine, a column of ions coming up from the tip up into the atmosphere or into your environment. So you can have these pyramids. We prefer, if you have 4 of them, to grid your property with pyramids. Now, the reason why you want to do that is if you're in an area that has a lot of air pollution, an area that has a lot of chemtrail activity, by having 4 pyramids grid your property, you're able to break up that chemtrail activity, not only above your home, but also in the neighborhood. We also suggest that you have four pyramids at least in your home. And what that does is, like all orgonite, emit soft electrons, negative ions, into your local environment, which is beneficial and also clears up some of the harmful effects of the wireless energy that's in your home that you can't avoid, like if you have while you have your wireless router on or while you're working on your desktop.
Next question. Is a bigger pyramid more effective than smaller ones?
Okay. So we get some of these questions sometimes talking about the size of the pyramid. Some people, if they have the resources, they can make bigger pyramids. But here's the thing. Making an orgonite pyramid involves pouring epoxy into a mold or structure of some kind. So the bigger the pyramid, the larger the mold, the more the resources you're going to need to make that pyramid. Now, what we found is that it's actually more economical to, instead of making a large pyramid because of the amount of resin you need to pour and the size of the mold, to make smaller pyramids and have an array of smaller pyramids that would basically be the same volume as one large one. So we think that that's probably the better way to go, and also you save a bit of money and it's not so costly.
Okay, next question. And this is a big one too. Is the epoxy that you use toxic?
Right. Okay, so the thing about orgonite, like any other device, is the main part being the epoxy is what is called or defined as a thermoplastic. Now, most of the consumer items that you have today are a form of thermoplastic, and these are plastics that are initially in liquid form, and you have to put them into a mold of some kind, either injection mold, or you can just pour it into a mold, or vacuum form molds.
So like your cell phone case is made out of thermoplastic.
Yeah, like that.
Your laptop is made out of thermoplastic. It's a very common thing. All of your devices,
consumer the casing for your vacuum cleaner,
are made out of thermoplastic.
These are all thermoplastics.
It's the same thing that's in the orgonite. So if it's toxic, then everything that you have that's a computer or a laptop or a phone is also toxic.
It's also toxic.
But it's not toxic, right?
It's not toxic. Like for example, during the production or the making of the orgonite piece or of the computer casing of the whatever device you're using that has a plastic shell around it, pretty much, that phase could be toxic, because when you're combining it with like a catalyst, another liquid that hardens this liquid plastic, fumes are emitted. So that's the same thing with a lot of orgonite. With certain, if it's polyurethane, that's another kind of resin. The fumes can be made or generated during the production process. So you'd always want to make orgonite in like a ventilated area where the air is always moving through. But after that catalytic process has ceased, then it's not toxic. I mean, you wouldn't abuse the plastic product any more than you would with your the casing on your mobile phone. You can have it in the environment.
Thank you. Yeah. So next one, can I use hempcrete or other types of materials in the orgonite instead of epoxy? Okay, so
there are people who are using things like a concrete or a hempcrete, something other than epoxy resin. I think based on the research that we've done, we haven't seen any reason why you want to use that as opposed to epoxy, and the effects are not the same as you would if you use epoxy. When Wilhelm Reich first came across this discovery of there being a cosmic energy that's being stored within accumulators or devices that have layers of metal and non-metal, which is plastic and sheets of metal, there was a reason why there was those specific materials. And when we go into things like orgonite, it's because when you put it in an epoxy, there is a force or a strain or a tension on the particulates inside that epoxy matrix. So the metals and the crystals are being squeezed in all directions. And also there is an electrical property, an insulative electrical property that's intimately connected to this orgone energy or cosmic energy.
Wow.
And you don't get that same performance with concrete or hempcrete. Now you can use hemp, from what I've been researching. You can use hemp in a form where now being called reinforced epoxies, that have hemp in them to make the epoxy much stronger, and that might be something worthy of research. But we believe that you want to use epoxy mixed in with metal and crystals in order to get the best effect.
Okay, so here's one. Can I put the Orgonite, like say like a plate, directly into my water tank
Okay.
to treat the water?
Yeah.
So actually, let's expand on that a little bit,
Right,
because
okay,
we've had some people that they want to take the Orgonite sleeping pod or the charge plate, and they want to just basically put it directly into their water tank, like in with the water. And we're saying, no, you really don't want to do that. You know,
Yes.
what you want to do is put it maybe underneath your water tank.
Yes.
Because all you need is the energy field
Yes.
that's coming off of this, right? And the energy field will go through the water tank,
Yes.
and it will work the same way. So you don't need to actually put it inside
Yes, that's right.
of the water tank.
Yeah.
It's not really that harmful if you do. If
Well,
you put
I
it in
wouldn't.
there.
I wouldn't suggest you do it.
But it's, I mean, it might get like worn down over time, but we just wouldn't suggest that you do that.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, yeah. We don't suggest you put any of these products in your water supply. Again, at the end of the day, this is a plastic, and slowly does degrade over time. So don't do that.
Yeah.
The whole point of having Orgone-based products is that the field itself goes through all material into the actual thing you're trying to treat.
Right.
And an easy experiment of that is the distilled water ice test. I have a glass of, and we'll talk about this later, but have a glass of water resting on top of one of these charge plates and put it in the freezer. And when that ice freezes, the vortex pattern that's coming from the Orgonite is actually frozen inside the ice. It's an amazing experiment, but it's to show that that 3D field, that structure, is captured in the water through the glass container. So yeah, all the Orgonite you can put near the water supply, near the thing you're trying to treat, and the water over time will be structured, will be conditioned.
Does Orgonite block Wi-Fi signals?
Oh, right. Okay. Now this is kind of the answer to it is a little bit complicated. Let's see if I can break it down. There are, just without considering Orgonite, there are certain materials that you can buy that have an inherent RF blocking ability. For example, you can go online and you can buy something called like RF blocking or foams or sheets of fabric, and these fabrics are made of certain materials that are able to block RF radiation. Okay, so if you were to get some of these materials, like magnesium powder, zinc powder, and certain steel powders, and mix it within Orgonite, within an epoxy as powders, it would have an inherent microwave blocking capability. But in general, if you just take like brass shavings, copper shavings, depending on the size of them, they may or may not attenuate some of those fields. So the whole point here is Orgonite inherently doesn't necessarily block your Wi-Fi. For example, if I was concerned about wireless energy coming from my router kind of affecting me, but I need it to do my work in the office, I would have one of these pyramids on or near the Wi-Fi router. The signal, the data, still goes from the router to my computer relatively unimpeded. So it's not meant to do that. What it does instead is transforms the energy of that signal, the nature of that signal. And a lot of that deals with the properties of Orgonite, but some of it does deal with what you're putting in your Orgonite. It does depend on the powders and what those materials are able to do when it comes to microwaves.
I'm going to skip forward to another question because as we're filming here, we have these animals that are showing
Kind of
up,
funny,
right? So
this always happens.
And so we're going to talk about Orgonite and animals for a second.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll get some shots of the animals because you can't see them in the camera. But
Yeah.
there's a peacock, because peacocks are all over the place in Morocco. So there's a peacock here, and we have 2 kittens that have just shown up. Now the reason why is because of all the Orgonite that we have on this table right now. Animals love to gravitate towards the Orgonite. So if you hear kittens in the background, we'll give you a few shots. But let's talk about animals and Orgonite for just a second, because these are some questions that we get. Is Orgonite good for my pets, or why do my cats tend to sleep on top of it?
Yes. So people who make Orgonite have observed that their pets and other animals in the environment in their garden tend to gravitate towards Orgonite. And we think it's because of the beneficial effects of the negative ions that are being emitted from Orgonite. Orgonite functions like a passive ionizer, and negative ions are good for the body. They're beneficial for the body. They have a cleansing property. They also make you like more relaxed and more tranquil. And I think animals are able to pick up on this and more sensitive to this kind of this kind of thing than we are.
Like, you know, like how a great way I think about it is like, you know how horses,
Yeah.
they let down?
Yeah.
Like where a horse will be all tense or whatever, but then the horse just kind of like lets down and relaxes. That energy of let down is what the Orgonite creates. So I think that that's why the animals gravitate towards it, because it's like, it's comfortable, it's cozy, and
Yes,
it's,
that's right.
it's nice and calm, which would lead us to our next question about children.
Yes.
Right, because we've had some experiences. Can Orgonite help to calm my children down? And so we had some friends, some neighbors that lived nearby us, and they had a few children, like 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
And so they got one of our
Pendants.
family sets with these pendants, right? So they got one of our sets for 5 different pendants for the whole family. And the testimony that we got back from them is that as soon as their children touched the Orgonite, like they put the necklace on, or they would even just hold the necklace, they would hold it, and there was an effect that came from it, and it would calm their children down.
Yes. Yeah.
Now this could be wonderful. A lot of people do say that helps. Now we know that a lot of kids these days, they have problems with there's all different kinds of things. There's additives in the food, and there's, you know, different reasons why children might be stressed out.
Yeah.
So if you have a child that's like really stressed out or really like hyperactive, and you can't seem to figure out how to get your kid to calm down, Orgonite might really help with that.
Yes.
It might really, and that's what we've seen. We've had people that have children, and the children, they just love being around the Orgonite. It does something to their mood, and it helps them to calm down and relax and then focus.
Yes.
You know, especially to fall asleep as well. Some kids have problems like night terrors and things like that.
Yeah.
So Orgonite can help with that as well. Let's see. Let's go back up here. I live in an apartment in a city with Wi-Fi towers.
Yeah.
What's the best way to use Orgonite?
Okay, so you don't have, if you live in an apartment and you're like several stories up, you don't have access to, you know, property where you can put it on the outside of the place where you live. So you can have the 4 pyramids. Have at least 4 pyramids in your apartment. The more Orgonite, the better. But I would put the pyramids in key areas in your apartment where there's most human activity. So always have like a pyramid around your computer or wireless router, the TV. So that's probably your living room section. Have a pyramid in your bedroom, where you're trying to get a good night's rest. The thing about being in an apartment is that it tends to be in a more populated area, and that area has a lot of cell phone towers in the area also. So you're kind of exposed. You're like kind of in a direct line of transmission with these cell phone towers. So yeah, you want to have at least 4 pyramids. Probably, if not grid the inside of your apartment, but then if you do have a pyramid in your room, see what equipment's in your room and put it around that equipment if it's wireless in nature.
Excellent. Let's see. How do I use Orgonite with cell phones?
Okay.
And this is a bit of a lead-in because we have a new product that we're developing that should be out soon.
Yes, that's right.
But let's talk about Orgonite and just cell phones in general.
Okay. So we all, there's a lot of research now that's pre-established talking about the wireless effects of having cell phones on, having cell phones near you, always being on the cell phone, and its radiation and how it impacts the skull. And then depending on what age you are, if you're a child versus an adult, it could be quite detrimental. But over time, in general, wireless radiation coming from the cell phone is dangerous. Okay, so we've been looking at ways of taking our product or the blend of what we've been using to make our Orgonite composites and putting it into a a blocker that would be on
Like
the
a sticker.
back, a sticker
Like
that would be on the back of your
like a
phone.
large sticker that would cover the back of the phone.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, a rigid piece of orgonite that would go on the back.
Thin,
Yeah,
but it
yes.
has to be a certain level of thickness in order to be most effective and powerful.
Yeah,
Right?
not only that, but just by making it, because of the thickness of the blend that we use,
Mm-hmm.
it ends up being about the thickness of one of our pendants.
Okay.
Um,
So a nice thick
Yes. Shield.
shield that you can stick onto your phone.
And so again, the purpose of having this shield is to change the nature of the fields that are coming in and being transmitted from the phone. The data is still there, so it won't actually remove any reception, but it will still absorb some of those harmful effects and actually turn your phone into a orgone generating device. Remember, orgone passively takes the wireless energy that comes around it or goes through it and turns it into beneficial energy, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we got coming up for our cell phones.
So, and let's just talk about cell phones in general. These are just a couple of tips. With a cell phone, we're actually using this cell phone right now to record our audio, but I just wanted to give everybody an idea. So here's a cell phone. Don't put the cell phone up to your head as often, you know, if it's just for a couple of seconds, so hello, how you doing, that's fine. But I usually like to use the speaker function on my cell phone because I don't want to put it right up to my head. The other thing is that you can, if you have headphones, if you want to have longer conversations on your cell phone, I would always use the headphones and keep the phone, like, you know, sort of away from your body. You don't want to carry your cell phones in your pocket. As well.
Yeah, and there's certain parts you don't want to carry it near.
And I know that a lot of women like
Yes.
to like tuck their cell phone
Yes.
right into their bra over here,
not
and
good.
you definitely don't want to do that. Put it right up against your body. And also, sometimes like women who wear headscarves, because you know we're in a Muslim country, so they wear headscarves, and what they do here is they take the phone and they tuck it right into their headscarf, so that it's like stuck to their head permanently, and they can just walk around with their hands free. You have to remember that the phone itself and the Wi-Fi that's going to it, it's emitting a form of radiation.
Yes.
That's really not good for your human cells.
Yes.
So just try to keep it away from your body. Don't use the phone in that way.
Yes.
And
yes.
this is just stuff that we've done to try to keep it safe. And also, we always turn it off at night. We never sleep with it, you know, next to our head where it's on, and you know, put it in airplane mode most of the time. So these are just like some safety tips in the meantime for how you can use a cell phone and, you know, safely for your health.
And also minimize the conversation on that phone, you know, to a couple of minutes. If it needs to be longer, either finish it later on the computer or on a landline.
Yeah, I would say that too. Don't spend hours and hours and hours talking on your cell phone.
Not a good idea.
Definitely not a good idea. So let's see. Not to mention it's kind of expensive if you don't have a really good data plan to just
Yes.
be on it like for hours at a time,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Let's move on to the charge plates. How do I use the charge plates?
Oh,
We get
great.
this question a lot because they're interesting. They have many different uses.
Yeah.
So how do you use them?
Okay, so charge plates, the way they're designed, obviously the field is to come up from the plate and below the plate, but you can have it in your living room or on the counter in your kitchen, so you can put just fruits and vegetables on top of it. And there's all kinds of experiments you can see online, people replicating this preservation experiment where if you have a fruit or vegetable on the charge plate, and you can, you know, if you wanted to do this over a 30-day period versus that same fruit or vegetable off the charge plate, like on a plate somewhere, over the course of time, the one on the charge plate is preserved longer. It's because of the orgone field that's coming from the plate. Now, what's great about charge plates also is that you can have these and put it inside your fridge, and it will preserve your fruits and vegetables in your fridge longer. Now, if you've looked at anything dealing with orgone accumulators by the late Dr. Wilhelm Reich, these are boxes of what I mentioned earlier of metal and non-metal as their walls. And when you make a box out of that, that orgone energy is stored inside the container. Okay, and some of the effects of that is that you're able to put things within this accumulator or this box, and things last longer. Seedlings sprout healthier. blood that's drawn from for testing is preserved longer within these accumulators versus the control wooden box. So these accumulators have a preservation effect. Now, funny enough, our refrigerators, in a way, if you think about it, are a form of Orgone accumulator. You know, they have a metal or a plastic on the inside and metal on the outside. You have basically a shell of plastic and metal. And that kind of lends to the preservation effect of refrigerators. If you put one of these plates inside your refrigerator, you basically boost the preservation ability of the fridge. I mean, we've noticed our customers and family have done this, and they found that the vegetables that they put in that last maybe like 4 or 5 days, maybe 3 days in the summertime.
Yeah.
And then they go slimy and all of that. That they don't get that when they put the plate inside. So.
You could also, some people put it on a chair.
Yes.
As well. So like if you have a chair, especially with a cushion, you can put it underneath the cushion and sit on the plate. Some people have actually done that because they want to like, if they're into meditation or they just want to like do some like breathing exercises, to put the plate on the chair to help, and sit on top of it.
Yes.
As well. Is the garden puck the same as the sleeping pod, or can it be used as one? And this is interesting how we've gotten this question just more than once. We've had this a few times, so we figured we would cover it here. I'll go ahead and answer it for you,
sure.
Right?
Okay.
So we've got the garden pucks and we've got the sleeping pods. Now the difference between these two, you can see like the size, the difference. You have to think in terms of volume. So I guess you could try to use a garden puck as a sleeping pod. We don't think that it would have the same effect. These sleeping pods are amazing because they're larger in volume and they're nice and thick and they have a nice smooth surface design. So I like to actually put it up to my skin like this, or just like on my chest when I'm sleeping, and it does wonders. You can feel it as opposed to the garden puck, which is just much smaller. The garden puck is it's supposed to be used for plants and used like to grid them. You can put one inside of a pot, but to like grid a garden or something. And we'll show another video on how to use the garden pucks and we'll use our own garden, and we'll show you guys some examples for like where to place the garden pucks in the garden. But the sleeping pods, they're different in a couple of different ways. So I would say that you really shouldn't say I'll get the garden puck and use it as a sleeping pod and get the same exact effect. You can give it a try. You can give it a try, but I'm telling you, these sleeping pods work, and they're really powerful, and the effect is very strong because of the density of how they've been created. So I say if you're looking for a sleep aid, definitely go with the sleeping pod and don't try to substitute it with the garden puck. Next question, do you use the same ingredients in all of your products, or specifically is shungite in all of your products?
Okay, yes, we get this sometimes asked from our customers. Yes, all of our products contain shungite, all of them. Now, and we also use a general blend to make all of our products also. It's generally the same blend for all of them that's inside of our Orgone.
And what's in that blend?
Now, that blend contains iron oxide, steel powder, brass powder, a crystal powder, either a quartz or a salt crystal, and shungite powder. It's basically all in powder form, and it's sifted through, and that's blended into our epoxy resin to get what we need. Now, some of our products contain more shungite than others.
Yeah, because not just shungite on the inside with the Orgonite blend, but also shungite on the outside.
That's right.
So, for example, so here's our charge plate. This is our brass finish charge plate.
Yes.
So that has shungite inside of it. But then here's our extra shungite charge plate with a black finish, and that black color that you're seeing is actually shungite.
Yes, that's
correct. So
correct.
there's extra shungite encased around the outside of it, in addition to being on the inside of the blend.
Yes.
So that's the difference between those two. This one has more shungite than the other products. We have the same concept with our building tiles, our construction tiles. We have these tiles in a plain pattern and also in a beautiful Moroccan design. These are shungite or extra shungite orgonite building tiles, and also the pyramids. The pyramids, they've actually changed a bit. They used to have a bit of a bronze color in the very beginning, but we've perfected the design. So now these pyramids are extra shungite pyramids just by nature, because they're probably our most popular product that we've sold a lot of these and shipped these all over the world, and people absolutely love them. And the effects that they give. So these, the same thing with our pyramids. Other things we've got, like the sleeping pod, as you've seen, it has a blue finish on it. So we have this blue holographic material that we use for that color. And the same thing with the garden pucks, a nice green color. So that, so we do use the same materials in all of our stuff.
That's right.
Let's see, what's the next question? Okay, here's a good thing, because we just talked about the ingredients. What's the difference between your Orgonite and some of the other Orgonite that I see online?
Okay, so our Orgonite, we use our special blend of powders that we just mentioned, and we use powders for a specific reason. The surface area, it all comes down to surface area. Now, if you want to just get your feet wet in Orgonite and you got the resources and you want to experiment, we encourage everyone to start making Orgonite, to experience these effects, to start doing some of the experiments like the ice test that we mentioned, the preservation experiments. You can do all of these just simply by getting some epoxy resin, some metal filings from your local machine shop. They normally throw these things away. And you can use these metals and resin and start making your own Orgonite pieces just to get familiar with it. But when you start getting to making more and more Orgonite and the science behind it, you realize that with powders you have more surface area. The metals in that matrix and the crystals in that matrix are able to store more energy, and it's intimately connected to the electrical activity in the environment, the electromagnetic activity in the environment. That's why we use powders. That's the difference. And also, we also use shungite as in our blend for a very important purpose. There's a lot of research dealing with shungite, especially in Russia, because it's the only place in the world where you can get the mineral. Well, the Russian scientists have done a lot of work dealing with shungite, and shungite has some very special properties. As 98% of its carbon, a percentage of that contains fullerenes naturally. Now, the thing about these fullerenes, they have a lot of special properties that's used commonly that we don't know of in our environment, but like filtering water, even nuclear remediation. But another special property of fullerenes is that they're able to change the spin of electromagnetic fields, so that the harmful effects of those fields are turned into more beneficial effects. And that's just from shungite mineral. And that's why we put that in our Orgonite, because at the quantum level, shungite is able to boost the effect of our Orgonite.
And shavings too, like the difference between powder and shavings, because you see a lot of people using shavings.
That's right. I mean, like shavings, you can see the actual, obviously, these blades of metal.
Yeah. So the powder is more effective than the shavings, even because it has more surface area.
It has more surface area.
Than the powder. So
yes,
that's a really big reason for the difference.
Yes.
Is the powerful effect. It looks different, like you've seen the really pretty Orgonite that some people make, where they have all these different crystals.
Yeah, very artistic. Yes.
It's like an art sculpture. This is different. I think our stuff's really pretty because of the designs that you put on the outside. However, it's really more of a functional.
Yes.
It's a functional thing rather than just being a sculpture of some kind.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, here's a big one. Do you gift Orgonite? Gifting is people, they make Orgonite and they make it in like these muffin tins, right? Yeah. Or like little towers or whatever they call them.
Yes.
And then they'll go and they will just throw it out the window of a car, or they'll place it next to a giant cell phone tower or some like public radiation creating thing, right? So cell phone towers are a biggie, and other areas where there might be a lot of bad electricity or bad radiation coming from that.
Yes, that's right.
Or EMFs, right? Electromagnetic fields coming from that. So they'll take these tower busters, like we know this one group has gifted thousands of pieces of Orgonite. So they're
Yes.
they're going to like a certain area around where they live, and they're just placing piece after piece after piece after piece. And the concept is to like clean up the environment in that particular area in a public way. The reason why we don't gift is because we think that we're actually the last couple of years that we've been doing this, we have been shipping our Orgonite to customers all over the world.
Yeah.
So the concept of our Orgonite is now like it's everywhere.
Yes.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, scattered.
And scattered. We think it's more effective for an individual person to create a shield around themselves and their home and their family.
Yes.
It's more effective to do that. It's definitely more cost effective than to just put stuff around the cell phone towers.
Yes, yes.
Right? So it's like protect yourself and your home as
Yes.
opposed to trying to take down the cell phone tower.
And in all likelihood, a lot of our customers are near a cell phone tower anyway.
Yeah, and now I think that it's a great thing when people do gift.
Mm-hmm.
We have complete respect for people who make Orgonite and
Yes,
they want to gift
yeah.
it, and if that's and they feel you feel really good because you
Yeah.
feel like you're helping the environment, and we do have a lot of respect for that. However, you do have to take into consideration that it costs money to buy materials. It's not like
Yes,
this
yeah.
free thing. You can't get shungite for free. Unless you live in Karelia, Russia, and you have a mine in your backyard.
Yes.
You can't just like get shungite for free or get these ingredients always for free. You put the time and effort into making it.
Yes.
So people who are gifting, they normally they have their own money.
Yes, that's
they
right.
they raise funds so that they can buy all the materials. So they donate their time so they can make the stuff so they can just go and put it in
Mm-hmm.
public areas. So it's kind of like a volunteer contribution.
Yes.
And not everybody can afford
Yes.
to gift.
Yes.
So that's why we're thinking it's probably much more effective and efficient to just consider like your own home, your own family.
That's right.
And say, I want to protect myself, my home, and my family, and maybe like a little bit of
the
my
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
Yes, that's right.
As opposed to I'm going to go and try to stop all the radiation that comes out of that particular cell phone tower, because there's so many cell phone towers going up. I mean, you spend hundreds of dollars on making Orgonite to gift a tower, and then they put 3 more towers up in
Yes.
the same neighborhood, because that's what they're doing with 5G.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so that's something to take into consideration as well. And that's just kind of where we stand on gifting. And we don't really have any sets that are like gifting sets. We have seen some other Orgonite manufacturers who make these gifting kits.
Yes, that's right.
Where they sell like, 20
or 50 of
20 or 50 different like pucks.
Yes.
They're different than our Orgonite. They're made out of shavings. They're made out of different materials. They don't use shungite.
Yes, that's it.
As we said, so you can make your own for gifting if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's some people think it's a fun thing to do, but
Yeah.
we don't. We're not doing the gifting, but we also think that we're being very effective in spreading Orgonite around the globe as well, because we've shipped to
Yes.
many different countries.
Yes,
Our stuff
yes.
is in many different countries. So we think of it as like every customer, there's like a little pocket,
Yeah.
a little hole that we've put in the atmosphere of the dirty electricity. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
right.
we're clearing things up one little place at a time,
Yeah.
all over the globe, just by making a good product for people and selling it and spreading it that way. So
Yes. Yeah.
let's see. Is Orgonite good for my baby, or how can I use it around my baby? Because we've had some people with infants,
Yes.
toddlers.
We mentioned children when we were first sharing our pendants
Mm-hmm.
with our neighbors, and how they liked it. So yes, it's good for children, especially infants. If you were to have, I think, like our charge plate, for example, if you have an infant in the crib, I would suggest like put something like a charge plate like on the undercarriage of it, on the underside of it,
Yep.
mounted, so that you can benefit from it, or have it somewhere in the room.
Well, one thing you have to take into consideration, because we know children and toddlers,
Exactly.
they want to put everything in
In
their
their
mouth.
mouth,
Okay?
right.
This is not a teething instrument.
It is none of this is.
So we would say don't give it to an infant or a baby,
Yes.
so that they will just put it in their mouth and suck on it, because
Yeah.
you definitely don't want that. So if you want to use it with your children,
Yeah.
just think in terms of like putting it underneath the
Yeah,
crib.
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Somewhere where they couldn't get access to it, but they would
you can
have the
place
benefits of it.
You can place it underneath the mattress of the crib. You can place it underneath the entire crib itself. Maybe if it's a car seat situation, you can like put the plate on the seat of the car, and then put the car seat on top.
That's right.
That you know, that's these are ways that you could use it around your kids, as far as babies are concerned.
Yes.
But definitely, just try to visualize the energy field that comes off of these, and then you're just creating a field. You're creating an energy field.
And these fields extend, through the material all the way through.
They'll go through the crib, through everything. It's not like, it's stopped at a certain place. You have to.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's about children and babies. Here's another one. Does your product or our Orgonite, does it lose its effect over time?
Yes. So I mentioned earlier about how Orgonite is able to take stray fields and convert them. So that's what's basically, if you want to think of it, driving or powering Orgonite. It's done passively. It's from what's happening in the environment. Our environment is saturated with so much RF energy that hasn't been introduced in the world, before the 20th century. So all of a sudden now we got these fields that are fluctuating at millions of times, billions of times a second, and that's everywhere. Now, when you put something like this in that environment, the materials inside our Orgone pieces, inside the matrix itself, takes these stray fields and converts it. So you don't have to recharge it. You don't have to add anything to it. Once it's laying around in the environment, in this environment that's saturated with RF energy, it's going to 24/7 continuously reconvert some of that energy into beneficial fields.
Excellent. On the same kind of note, do I have to, because this is another question we get, do I have to recharge my Orgonite in any way? So we've had this question in a few different forms, like do I need to put it out in the sun? Do I need to put it under a full moon? Do I have to put it in salt water? Because some people who are into some of the esoteric type things, they think in terms of like crystals, and you have to charge a crystal.
Like you have to be dedicated towards doing something.
And you have to do some kind of thing around it. So we don't really like to go into that particular area as far as using this as a spiritual thing. This is a purely scientific product that we have here. It creates an energy field that does scientific things to the cells of the body, and it helps, right? So when it comes to that, as far as do I need to charge it? Do I need to do any of those types of things? The answer is no. You don't need to put it in the sun or put it in under the moon or anything like that. If you're into that sort of thing, that's with other stuff. This is just a scientific product. Once it's formed, right. Once the epoxy has cured, because the curing process, which is making the whole thing harden. The curing process takes at least 24 hours in some cases for it. So during that curing process, everything is sealed in there. It does not lose its effect. You do not need to recharge it. You do not need to take it or bring it and put it in the sun or on a certain calendar day or anything like that. Right? None of that will actually change this effect. It won't boost it or make it any better or make it any less. For any reason, because this is a set product.
Again, this is technology that's based on the work of Dr. Wilhelm Reich, and the effect is solely based on what's happening in the environment, and so it functions 24/7.
Passively.
That's
passive
why
ionizer.
When you mentioned the gifting movement earlier, that's why they can take these pucks and just kind of toss it over there or somewhere and leave it, because once it's set and forget. It just functions all the time.
It's just constantly emulating something. And you know what? It really does make changes. Like for our home, because we make this, we have so much Orgonite around us all the time that it's just become a way of life, and the energy is just constantly around us, and it's changed a lot of things. I don't have the anxiety that I used to have. I just notice if we have people come over, they walk in the house and there's a certain feeling. They're like, wow, it feels really good in here. And they tend to want to come over all the time, so there's stuff like that. It's because there's a really good calming energy and a peaceful energy because of the Orgonite. So it's just constantly, passively doing what it's doing. Let's see. Okay, and then just a couple more questions. So on that same line, do we have, or why do we use crystals
Yes.
in our Orgonite? Now there are crystals in this Orgonite, and the crystals are in the form of quartz crystal
Quartz crystal or salt crystals.
or a salt crystal, right?
Yes.
So it's either one of those because they have the same exact properties.
Yes, yeah.
So I want to talk about that a little bit because not many people are aware that crystals hold a scientific and technological function.
Yes.
For example, they use quartz crystals in computers, right? And in different types of computer-based technology. So, Tivon, you are an engineer, you've been technically trained, so you have a background and a skill set around this. So, coming from that standpoint, could you just kind of explain to the layperson why they use crystals in computers?
Yeah, okay. So, crystals can be stressed when you apply pressure to them, and its property is called piezoelectricity.
Right.
When you apply stress to a crystal, charges form on the, if you imagine crystals kind of like a hexagonal or sharp shard, charges are formed on its edges. These electrical charges are formed, and these electrical charges, you use this in computers for things like computer logic, for ones and zeros and things like that, for switching. You can also use crystals in that way to create high frequency signals.
So it creates a frequency.
That's right.
Right, and
Yes.
that's how things work and operate is frequencies, and they
That's
signal.
right.
It's like it emulates.
Yes.
It's the thing that pushes out
Yes.
something. It's like the pulse. You said
Yeah.
yesterday I asked you this question.
Yes.
It creates the pulse.
It creates the pulse.
So
yes.
if you have an energy and you're trying to create a field, you need to pulse out that field.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why they use the crystals in electronics
Yes.
and in computers, and that's why we use crystals in our Orgonite.
Yes.
Now the crystals that we use come in a powder form. We use powdered quartz.
Yes.
So as you might see other Orgonite where they have like the Orgonite and they have like a beautiful crystal inside
Yeah.
of the epoxy, and it's more of a
it-
statue.
Yeah.
We use powdered quartz
It's part of the blend.
as part of the blend that's in there, and it's for that piezoelectric effect.
Yes, that's right.
All right, so that is why we use crystals. And the last question here, and this is one we've gotten a couple times.
Yeah.
Just wanted to kind of clear it up. Is Orgonite an occult object or a practice?
Yes, right.
Because people see this and they're like, oh, that's just like crystals. That's just like,
Yeah.
chakras
Yes,
and
yeah.
meditation, and or it's an occult thing,
Yeah.
or some kind of a magic thing. And we just really want to clear this up.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So, Tivon's background, again, he is a technician and he's an engineer and he's been trained. He's got some, military experience as well. So everything that we're doing here has a technological function, a scientific function. It works whether you believe in it or not. So having a spiritual background and using it for spiritual purposes and using it for health purposes are two very separate things.
Yes.
So we stay focused on the scientific and the health purposes.
Yes.
Orgonite has been used by people who are into the occult practices, whatever they might be, whatever flavor of occult practices, just like computers are used by people who are in the occult practices, and electricity is used by people. So it's not that this is an occult object.
Yeah.
We've had these questions about this as far as like
Okay.
the symbols,
Yeah.
the symbols that you're using.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, and we did address this in another video we just made, but like, let me try to find this one. So we've got our flower. It's a flower of life pattern, and it's a pattern that was designed by Tivon, and they're like, oh, that's an occult symbol, the flower of life. And the thing is that, well, we don't really see this as an occult symbol. We chose this design. First of all, it's very expensive to make a mold, to get a master to make a mold. I mean, it can cost several hundreds or thousands of dollars in some cases. We invested a couple $1,000s, I think, into our molds, right?
Yeah.
Into creating our molds. So if you're going to choose a design, you can't have lots and lots and lots of designs because that's lots and lots and lots of money.
Yes, that's right.
Right? So we had one design, and we chose this design based on nature, patterns in nature. So, for example, the flower of life symbol, which is it's very it's a geometric shape.
It's just, yeah, it's more geometry.
It looks a lot like, for example, the inside of a sunflower in nature. So there's just patterns that naturally occur in nature, the fractal designs that happen in nature. We thought that was a nice neutral effect. It's just geometry, it's just shapes. It's not necessarily some kind of occult symbol.
Yeah.
Some people think that the flower of life is an occult symbol, and some people have used it as an occult symbol.
Yeah.
That does not make it an occult symbol. It's just shapes and the forms and things in nature. Is the sun an occult symbol? Is the moon an occult symbol? It could be used as such, but it's the sun and it's the moon.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? It's nature. So that's where we stand on is this an occult practice?
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, other than when I first was researching this a couple of years back, to find I want to find a solution for my insomnia.
Right.
Among other things.
Treat a health situation.
A health situation.
Right?
It was like I stumbled on this thing where it seemed like the people who were involved in Orgonite, a lot of people were into New Age type things. But what I was surprised or was interested in is the Dr. Wilhelm Reich was a scientist. He was a psychologist by training, but when he discovered Orgone, what he called Orgone energy, but it's actually a cosmic field, or they call it 0 point or scalar field. When he came across this discovery, it was by the scientific method. It was by a series of experiments that in the creation of devices he used to measure these effects. So that's just purely what we've been trying to go for as solutions to fix people's problems, health problems, and just in the environment in general, is sticking to the science, sticking to things that people can replicate when they have these devices in their home.
Excellent. All right, well, that's it for our questions and answers. I hope that that helps. Now, as always, we just put out a phone number. I have a phone number on the bottom of this video and other videos. So if you do have any questions, you can give us a call. But we actually prefer emails because we're in a different time zone as a lot of people, and we're just two people here.
Yes,
we're just two people running our own little small business, and so we do the best that we can to answer everybody's questions and get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And it's the easiest thing for us to do is to write an email. But if you want to call us and talk to us, you can give us a call at the phone number and leave a message, and we'll call you back within 24 to 48 hours. Or any questions about our products or anything like that, just let us know, and we're happy to help. And thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate the questions and being able to share this knowledge with everybody, and we hope that you found it helpful. All right, so we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.